Hello, everyone. I'm Father Alex Sandahar, Rector, St. John the Divine Episcopal Church in Sun City Center.
And you are speaking with the rector of All Angels by the Sea on Longboat Key. My name is Dave Marshall. I am thrilled to be here. It is a wonderful weekend of football for Seahawks fans, so I can't help but smile. But I would like to think that there's more to my joyous outlook than just simply a football game. So I think it's just hanging out with you, Alex. We had a great week last week.
Yeah, we did. We were filming our, not our podcast, but our class that's going to be appearing very soon. It's going to be available for those last 5 weeks of this liturgical season known as the season after Pentecost, or ordinary time for those of you who are recovering Catholics.
So basically at the end of October, we're going to do a 5-week gospel study that ends right around Thanksgiving. So I'm very much looking forward to it. It was great. And these lessons are profound. It's very much like our Lenten study, as you had pointed out. But today we have something about this coming week's gospel lesson. And so, my friends, if you are preaching on Sunday and this is now Saturday, and you have less than 24 hours, you are certainly welcome here. We will give you something to consider that will hopefully inspire the words of the Holy Spirit to come from you.
You say this every week, and I do know people that it gets away from them. It's gotten away from me sometimes, but there is no judgment. No. And there is no shame. We're just all in this together.
We're all friends here. We're all serving Christ. And also, Jesus, who said, I will put the words. The Spirit will give you what you need. So maybe the Spirit's working with us today.
I think so. Let's hope so. So right. Do you want to read the text?
I would like you to read the text because, folks, I wanted to cover something different. And Alex had something about this very difficult gospel lesson. And so Luke 16, my friend.
So Luke 16, this is the last few verses. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Here endeth this part of the lesson.
Here endeth this part of the lesson. And why did you want to talk about this?
So I think that we are talking about wealth. I mean, that is an important thing. And the parable that takes place before this about the dishonest manager is one that's worthy of discussion. I keep thinking about rites of passage and growing maturity.
Okay.
So one of the stories I love to tell is I am very shocked that my parents let me have a dog when I was a kid because I killed all my goldfish.
Right.
My goldfish named Fluffy
didn't
make it. Okay.
They didn't make it.
Didn't make it. Right. Didn't last a week. And it's this idea of, if you're going to be trusted with something that is significant, with something that requires a lot of care, a lot of stewardship, you should probably start off by being able to show your trustworthiness in something small. And so I kind of think of it that way. And then the other thing I think of is the stewardship we have of this world. So, I love that we're talking about colonizing other planets. And, I'm a big Star Trek fan. So, yes, I believe one day there will be the Federation of Planets and, we'll go other places. But let's focus on this one, too. Let's do some stewardship of this earth, which is the home that God has given us to care for. So for me, I think this is a good stewardship sermon. If you haven't preached one in a while and you don't want to preach necessarily only on money, this is, I think, an important passage.
Okay. I'm going to go on a little journey for a moment. So I'm looking at the clock to monitor myself. There is an article I'm really intrigued about, and it is the anthrocentric way we look at all of God's creation, particularly our dependence upon animals. And that, is God anthrocentric when God is looking at all of God's creation? Or does God actually love turtles and dolphins more than God loves creation? Now, the Bible will tell us something, but the reason why I bring this up is that every time somebody talks about we need to go to Mars, we need to colonize Mars, do they ever talk about bringing animals? No. And this is one of those interesting things. Can we live outside of the animal kingdom? And has God created this earth and the way, and our bodies in a way that we actually can't leave and go and find live somewhere else? Like I've been pondering all of that.
Yeah.
The reason why I bring that up with today's gospel is it has to be, we have to, I think, focus at some point on the word dishonest and
Oh yes.
the dishonest wealth. We are being dishonest with ourselves if we think we can go and colonize the moon or Mars without bringing other living objects, in particular, without bringing animals. It's not true, I don't think. Now, feel free to write in and tell me
Now,
how wrong I am.
well, your
And
take is even hotter than mine. I mean, that's a scalding take right there. And listen, I agree with you, but I think that eventually, when we talk about colonization of other planets, there's a difference between colonization and terraforming.
okay.
Terraforming is making things more Earth-like in a
Hmm.
way, and
Hmm.
so in that sense, we will need to have animals with us. We will need to have other creation with us. But here's the thing: it kind of comes back to the point I was making. If
Sure.
we cannot be in harmony with the ecosystem that is here, how can we possibly have a healthy relationship and dynamic with any ecosystem that we create over there? Human beings are human beings. We love to exploit
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
our own purposes.
Hmm. So taking it straight down into Jesus's life and time,
Hmm.
Peter and many others were fishing, and they were overfishing,
Hmm.
and there was an insatiable desire by Rome to have the fish that was coming out of Galilee. And because of that unsustainable desire, Galilee, to this day, the Sea of, cannot support the life that was happening when Peter was there. And so when Jesus brings up dishonest wealth, back in those days, they might have considered dishonest wealth is what's happening with this overfishing. It's happening with particular farming practices. And one more thing,
Hmm.
uh, with the color purple, it was to show, dignity and royalty and all that, because purple was an impossible color for them to make. The only way that they could do it back again in the first century was that there are these particular mussels that grow, that you take it and you squeeze the mussel and out drops this little drop of purple. And so a royal person would have a very small purple stole, and that would show their wealth because they could harvest that many mussels to create this little strip of purple cloth. Um, so when Jesus is talking about dishonest wealth, I think there is an ecological connection in with what they were experiencing and the highly structured tax system that they were under.
I think I completely agree with you. And the joke in my mind that emerged when you were talking about the muscles and the little bit, it's like, and you got a workout, so you got muscles from squeezing muscles. That's for my son who works out a lot, who
Yes.
does not listen to the podcast, so I don't even know I
Oh,
can.
Samuel. All right.
But I think coming back, like zooming out a little bit from that, what you said is important, but zooming out from that, the idea of dishonest wealth for me is the wealth of the world, because no matter what we do on some level, even the most altruistic of us, even the most quote unquote holiest of us, at some point make compromises with our integrity to earn wealth. We make compromises with our integrity in order to gain favor in the world.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Um, okay. Another way to look at dishonest wealth, and I've pulled the word up in a particular Greek dictionary. I haven't run it. This is Thayer's. I haven't run it through all the
Mhm.
other ones, but um, part of dishonest is not being true to it, which is the sense of when it has to do with ownership. Okay. And to be dishonest is the other day, I think you and I were walking along. There was a Porsche 911. And I'm like, oh, that's where I parked my car. Okay. So that's dishonest wealth. I don't own one. I do, but it's this one. I can't fit in it. But um, so the sense that we actually don't own our wealth. Okay. This is going to sound very strange. Um, but the dishonest side is to think that everything we earn is ours, when in fact everything that we've earned is a blessing as a result of our hard work.
I'll put it another way, because Jesus
Okay.
talked about this towards the end. I think that dishonest wealth is believing that we are masters of wealth versus wealth being masters of us.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
and the way that I know that wealth can master me is a couple different ways. And this is actually, I think, what I want to preach about is, number one, my desire to acquire wealth is my main drive.
Hmm.
For some people, it is their main drive to say, I want to be as wealthy as possible. But the second way is also, I think, just as sinister, but it doesn't seem that bad, which
Hmm.
is, I just want to provide for my family. But
Right.
the way that manifests itself is that we might be constantly afraid that we don't have enough.
Right.
And that fear and that scarcity causes us to be afraid. It causes us to say things or do things that compromises our integrity.
Right.
But
Right.
also it makes it seem like God is not present, giving us the things that we need.
Hmm.
And so that does not mean God is going to deposit money in your checking account, but it does mean that God knows and understands your physical needs for food and shelter and all those things, and
Hmm.
wants you to have them. So this is where we kind of get into the serving the two masters and the honest and dishonest wealth. But I want to have one more thought in this particular direction.
Okay.
There are people who say, I wish I had more faith.
Mhm.
Give me more faith. And why does Jesus often talk about the faith of a mustard seed? Why does he talk about it in that size?
It was
I'm
an
asking.
agricultural
Yeah, but,
society that
but
they
why
were.
does he talk about that size, though?
Oh, because it was the smallest seed that they had on record because they didn't understand more mold spores and the rest.
Right.
Jesus,
But
but
but it was this use of an image
right,
of this amount of faith is what you need in order to do these things that we're talking about.
sure.
And sometimes I think we go to Jesus and say, I need more faith in order to do this. And Jesus
Mhm.
says, you haven't been a good steward of the faith I've given you.
Oh, okay.
You want more. You haven't used what I've given you already.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the person who says, I want seconds on my plate.
Hmm.
They haven't finished their plate yet, but they're scared that it's going to run out. And no, I am not talking about mashed potatoes and Thanksgiving.
Gosh, there's a comedian. I was trying to find him again so I can send it to you, where he was talking about his whole stand up thing is about bread and sitting down at an Italian restaurant where they serve bread and how it was two couples and how the other guy and him kind of squared off at each other. They looked like it was one of those Western
Hmm.
scenes where the sagebrush is rolling
Yeah.
through. Like, who's going to grab the last? And he's like, I still have bread on my plate, but if I don't grab it, he's going to take it.
Yep.
And
Well,
I don't know if you've heard this stand up about bread, but he went to it by saying, bread is so important. Jesus even said, I am bread.
but the other
That I
thing is
thought was
though,
hilarious that
but,
he
but
brought
the other,
Jesus in.
but the other thing is though, is that um, bread, like we can get bread anywhere, right?
Yeah,
But when we
right.
go to a restaurant and they don't bring us bread,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we feel slighted.
We too.
Like I'm entitled to this bread, you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
I watch how much other people are taking bread. I'm like, I got one, you got one, okay, two, kind of thing.
Ever do that with pizza, like in college with your friends?
Oh yes, no, we
You're
cut that
like,
up for sure.
yeah, there's
You know,
8 slices and 3 people. You're like, oh, this is not going to end well. Somebody's going to be mad. So,
and so this comes back to in the last part of you will love one and hate the other.
okay.
I think Jesus is once again preaching about the importance of wealth being in proper context of a person's life.
All right. So before we leave to the hate one and serve the other,
Mhm.
it's so dishonest. And then he gave us the opposite. Who will entrust you to the true riches?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's actually who will entrust you with genuine.
Yeah.
The word riches doesn't actually appear, and so because in English we have to put something on there. The sense of this is the wealth that comes and goes versus what's really genuine. So, what do you consider is genuine as opposed to money that comes and money that goes?
I've seen money come and go, and I
Right.
reflect so many times about stupid purchases that I've made and thought, goodness, I've wasted so much money in my life. And I see that.
Right.
But the wealth for me is found in my ability to love and be loved by friends and family.
Right.
But I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that one of the greatest pieces of wealth that was ever given to us was our mortal soul. That it is something that is given to us and no one else.
Given
We
or
can
on loan?
no, it's ours.
Okay. Okay.
It is firmly ours to do with what we desire,
Hmm.
and if we desire to give it away or sell it for a sandwich or whatever,
Hmm.
God is not going to stop us
Hmm.
from doing that. But that to me, I think, is one of the biggest riches that we possess, because it is the one thing that we truly says belongs to us,
Hmm.
and we don't value it.
Hmm.
We value other things more than our soul.
Okay, I completely agree. That people have said here at church that they enjoy listening to us because of our genuine affection that we have for each other. You know that they can tell that this is real, um, and that we also have a genuine affection for Jesus, for Scripture, and for helping our fellow brothers and sisters and those who preach with their lives, for them to get a better grasp of what's going on. That is genuine. Those are the things that don't get taken away. Like, what do they say at every graduation? You have earned something that can never be taken away, right? Once you have it, you always have it.
You'll be paying for it for the rest of your life, but sorry.
Again,
Yeah,
it's honest, right?
it's
Okay.
honest. I mean, I'm being honest here, but no,
If I'm
but
being, yeah, it's college is anyway. It's
but the
expensive.
thing is, I hear what you're saying, and I think this is where looking at what young people um, are right now, and the things that are tempting them to sell their souls.
Mm,
The things of fame and wealth and notoriety. All those things are really testing them.
okay.
You know, so I worry and am very concerned about young people not realizing the things that can damage their soul, and the ways that we're being pushed harder and harder to sell ourselves, and in such ways.
Hmm. Yes. So to hold on to genuineness. So dishonest wealth that can um, that we think that we own it, we really don't. It comes and goes. Like I own a house, and it has a particular value that Zillow tells me what it's worth online. Is that really the value? No, it's not. The real value is when it's sold, but in genuineness, the real value is living in it and having a house and having a loving family inside of it and being safe. You know that's the genuineness, what it's actually worth. You know that's
Well, I mean, the thing is, the actual concept of worth is very relative.
it
And I
is.
think this is also what Jesus is trying to say, that the way the world measures worth and value is
Hmm.
very different than the way that God measures it.
Right.
And so that home that you grew up in, or that I grew up in, somebody may say, well, it's broken down. It needs a new roof. It really has no real value. And you say, well, look at on the wall there where we measured each other's height. or that's where the Christmas tree was for the last 20 years. Like, these are the things that determine our sense of value. So I think a good question for preachers to challenge their congregations with is, what do you value and why do you value it? And if you are going to make this a true kind of stewardship sermon, the question would be, do you value the ministry of the church? Do you value the ministry that you are a part of enough to give of yourself to it?
Right. Good. I'm going to go again out of this world for just a moment. So Scott Kelly, I believe is his name. He's the one that has logged in the most amount of time off the planet.
Yep.
That so he talks about the International Space Station and how it is foreign, right? How it's alien. It's not living like we know how to live. It is it's abstract of so many other things, and that when he got back to Earth and was able to start, walking again because of atrophy and the rest. One of the things that he did was hug a pet, right? Was hold something, because they have humans, they have relationship. He was able to see his family and talk to them and all that type of stuff. But the genuineness is when either him or some cosmonauts are up in space and they come back and then they hug their dog, right? Because the dog had no idea where they were. And had no way to communicate with them, and the dog's like, I thought you were dead and now you're alive. Genuineness, that is that's really what living is. So I think we've taken that horse down that road long enough. No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or to be devoted to one and despise the other. Hate is an improper translation of the Greek word. It's the same word that was used earlier about if you do not hate your mother and your father and your children and life itself. It is a category of loving. It is loving something over the other. Okay.
So I think we caricature, and this is one of the things I want to be careful of when we talk about aspects of wealth, is we tend to focus on the extremes. We tend to focus on the billionaires and the people living on less than $1 a day, and those are the two things we put in conversation.
Okay.
And when we begin to think about the being, what do we love more than other things, I do think there is an issue in our country where, and I'll name it, I think there's an issue within the church, that we are sometimes seeking to be, quote, sustainable or profitable or whatever other word we want to use, versus faithful to the mission of the church, which does not always turn a profit.
No. No.
You disagree?
Do you want to tell a little more?
So let me give you an example. If you think of a lot of small congregations that are doing great work in the church, but cannot pay their insurance,
right?
Cannot pay a full-time member of the clergy, and there is life in that church. They are doing things, but just they cannot sustain themselves. And sometimes the church is saying, well, that's all well and good, but because you can't sustain yourself, we're going to close you.
I'm going to get really specific.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if at my own peril. So a congregation who is doing really good work, but they have not been repairing their roof, and now the roof is too expensive and they cannot afford to do it. So it's not just, the normal everyday expenses.
Right.
It's the really big, $70,000 roof repair. And do we close down a really important mission, the things that they're doing, simply because of a roof?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say that at some point, I believe sometimes that happens because we use words like investment.
Right.
We use words like return on investment or rate of return. We do a cost benefit analysis. And I'm not saying that there should be no discernment in regards
Right.
to how the church uses money. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that if we began to live into fully what our values were as the church, we would be spending our money differently. And I say that at the parish level, being I'm in a parish and we need to be thinking about that, all the way to the national level of churches that are, set priorities. And I'm like, is that the best use of the wealth that we have accumulated in God's name?
Right. The genuineness, I think, is what that congregation does to serve the community, serve the parishioners, do all the stuff that they do.
Mhm.
To me, that's genuineness, and we don't have all the answers, nor were we attempting with the last 5 minutes of our show to be able
No,
to
but it does, but it
tackle
does,
that.
but it does raise an important question, because if we are asking people to give to the church, there should be accountability and transparency, which I believe in many cases there are,
Right.
but there should also be an understanding of what our goals are.
Right.
And what are the things that Christ valued the most, which is caring for the poor. We talk about meeting the stranger a lot. We talk about welcoming people from different walks of life and language and culture. And we talk about being in those places where it is very, very dark and there's
Hmm.
not a lot of light. Well, let's measure to see if that's what we're doing. And if
Right.
that's not what we're doing, then we need to be doing it more.
Yeah.
The other side of it is there are grants, there are opportunities, but it takes a long time, I think, for the institution of the church to adapt and change to what some of the basic needs of congregations and people are.
Hmm. Yeah. I've learned in Florida, our particular ecology here is trying every day to break down any building that we build here. And Alex and I had joked that of the post-apocalyptic books that we both have read, none of them are centered in Florida, because 3 weeks later there are no buildings left. Right?
Yeah,
It's
the
because
vines, the vines are
everything
taken
takes
over,
over.
and the crocodiles and alligators are already living in there.
They're already right. That
Yeah,
I have grass that is trying its hardest to grow across the street. It is trying to meet my neighbor's grass. And it is, my weed whacker can't do it. I have to actually take a spade and kill it,
it's like Romeo and Juliet. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because
So
that's, if I look away for 2 weeks, it's going to be halfway across the street, I think. So it's particularly difficult in Florida to maintain a church building. Um, and, but it is one of the things that we need to focus on. With the last time that we have together, the last sentence is, "You cannot serve God and wealth." I have memorized this phrase, I've said this phrase, and I have never looked at the verb to serve. And I just did, which is interesting. So there are many ways of serving, and Jesus talks about different ways of serving. Like one would be, you'll sit down and the master will serve you food. So there's the waiter serving. There is the serving with lips, but then your body does something different. There's different ways to do that. This particular serve is troublesome
mhm,
in 21st century America, because it is to serve as a slave would serve the master. Okay, so that type of service, being enslaved to, you
being bonded.
cannot break free. You are bonded. You are held, um, and the concept of being a slave to wealth or a slave to God. So when they say you cannot serve God and wealth, we're like, but I need to have a 401k and retirement, right? Well, that's not being a slave to it in this priest's opinion.
Mhm.
That what Luke was describing here in Greek is a this devoted sense of what a slave can do. Now, if you look at the beginning of verse 13, no slave can serve two masters. For a slave will he want to be devoted, right? That it is the repeating sense of slave and then to serve in the sense of a slave.
I, I
And
think the
yeah, sorry.
I think the way that I would say it is being bonded to and worshiping. We worship wealth and the pursuit of wealth in this country, in our society, in this world. And so to be a slave, to be bonded to it, is to have given up our freedom to it. To
Okay.
give up our freedom to Christ, though, or to God,
Mm-hmm.
is to set ourselves free.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing that takes a few more minutes than just a quick sermon to break this open, because we've got to make that comparison. But I think that being the last thought, I think, is helpful, because it tells people, go back and try to read through this with each of these verbs and each of these words to see where it's leading you.
Yeah. And it's almost like the phrase isn't you're going to be bonded. So using your word, you're going to be chained and bonded to something.
Mm-hmm.
So is it going to be dishonest, or is it going to be genuine? Again, drawing these parallels or contrasts, I guess, that Luke is doing here, and then cycling all the way back up to the top. And yes, I know we're going a little bit over, but I think this is important. That whoever is faithful in very little is then faithful also in much.
Right.
And whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much. You and I, in our lifetime, have watched notable, well-regarded pastors lose their pastorate because they started with a little bit of dishonesty, either with money or with
Something
their
else,
romantic
relationships.
relationships,
Yeah.
right? And that it never, um, from what I understand with the FBI, the embezzler never embezzles for the first time $10 million. It's always a small amount, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Likewise with God's kingdom, whoever's very faithful in a little is shown more and more and more.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good stopping point, because we could keep going on
We could.
this one. But as I said before, it's important for everybody to read the text and start digging through it, to see for your ministry context what it's going to be. But
Right.
be on the lookout for today's episode on the podcast on Spotify and wherever good podcasts are hosted, as well as YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and be looking out very soon for our class. Dave, it's been great having you around, having you with me today.
It's been very genuine for me, and genuinely speaking, I am glad that you said this morning, no, we need to do the gospel lesson, because I wanted to do Psalm 113, but you stuck to it, and I'm glad that you did. So thank you,
I'm
and
glad
thanks
to
for being my friend.
and thank you for being my friend, and we will catch you in the next one.
God bless.